My husband was infatuated with his young, beautiful employee, and she strutted around thinking she had landed herself a billionaire. But she had no idea that everything he had, the company, the reputation, came from my family's money and connections. When I caught them together, I didn't scream, didn't cry. I smiled, letting them be together. Because I wanted to see, when all they had left was poverty, how long their love would last. The USB drive sat on my desk, small, lifeless, but heavy like an accusation. Mr. Price, my family's butler, set it down with eyes lowered, as if he already knew what was waiting for me. "You should watch this," he said in his gravelly voice, then quietly left the room. I picked it up, my fingers brushing over the cold plastic, my heart pounding even though I had tried to prepare myself. I plugged the USB into my laptop. The screen lit up, and the video began. Security camera footage, high angle, the CEO's office. David, my husband, sat in the leather chair, poised, but cradling a young woman in his arms. She was soft, boneless, pressed up against him, red polished fingers tracing circles on his shirt. "What's wrong, David?" Her voice dripped with sugar. "Not comfortable here? Or are you afraid your wife will find out?" David's face flushed, not from embarrassment, but from an excitement I didn't want to name. He smirked, a flicker of contempt in his eyes. "Afraid of her? She's nothing to me." He swept his arm across the desk, sending papers and pens clattering to the floor. The girl giggled, letting him wrap an arm around her waist and lift her onto the desk. Her laughter rang out, sharp, cutting into me like a blade. David gripped her ankle, his voice dropping low, but I still caught every word. If it weren't out of pity, I'd have divorced her long ago. Compared to you, she's nothing. The girl covered her mouth, her eyes sparkling with triumph. "That bad, huh?" He gave a mocking laugh, leaning in closer. "You don't know what I have to endure at home. With you, I'm moved, obsessed, never bored. But with her, she just drains me." I paused the video, my hand shaking so hard the mouse slipped from my grip. Cold. It was as if I had been plunged into an icy lake, my breath trapped in my chest. My fingers brushed against a glass cup on the desk. The sharp crash echoed, shards scattering across the floor, each one like a blade stabbing my chest. Pain. The door swung open. David walked in, shirt rumpled, hair damp from the shower. His eyes flicked to the floor, then to me, concern etched on his face. "What happened, Olivia? Are you okay? Stay put, I'll clean it up." His voice was casual, caring, as if he hadn't just said those words in the video. On any other day, I might have softened under his kindness, but now my nails dug into my palms until it hurt. I took a deep breath and forced a faint smile. "It's fine. Thank you." This wasn't the time to expose everything. If he wanted to put on a show, I'd play along, until the curtain dropped. That night, when David's warm breath brushed against me, I turned my back, shifting away. "I'm tired, David. Go to sleep. I have to see the doctor tomorrow." He froze for a moment, then his arm slid around my waist, pulling me close. "If I didn't have an important meeting tomorrow, I'd go with you," he murmured, his breath in my ear. I bit my lip, swallowing the urge to recoil. "It's fine," I replied evenly, as if nothing were wrong. He was quiet for a beat, then spoke again, his tone softer. "Olivia, the company's been struggling lately. Can you ask your dad if there's any opportunity for me?" In the dark, I curved my lips into a smile. So, this was why he was being gentle. Not for me, but for the doors my family could open for him. "Sure," I nodded, docile, just the way he liked. He tightened his hold, whispering about having a baby, going on vacation, the same sweet words I once believed, Now they were nothing but dull knives, blunt yet enough to hurt. The phone on the nightstand buzzed softly. A message from Doctor Noah, reminding me of my follow-up appointment. I texted back, "Got it," and set the phone down. The screen glowed, then went dark again. I lay there, eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling. I didn't sleep at all that night. The wine bottle lay on the table, half full, its deep red as dark as blood. I took another sip, the bitterness sliding down my throat, doing nothing to improve my mood. I walked to the door, got in the car. "Central Hospital," I said, my voice hoarse. The driver nodded, asking nothing. I leaned my head against the window, the alcohol blurring everything, but not enough to erase the image of David and her from last night. Noah's clinic was spotless, the faint scent of antiseptic lingering in the air. He sat across from me, examining the scans, his gaze focused behind thin-rimmed glasses. "Recovering well," he said, his deep, steady voice almost comforting. "From the images, everything looks stable." I nodded, but my eyes stayed on him, assessing. The white coat framed his tall, lean figure, pale, smooth skin, refined features, the kind of man people turned to look at, no matter where. But I knew well, the more handsome the man, the easier his words could deceive. I shoved the report into my bag, the paper crumpling under my hand. I was about to stand, but Noah called out. "Hey, Olivia, are you okay? You look different." His voice was gentle, but his gaze was sharp, as if seeing right through me. I curled my lips into a bitter smile. "It's nothing. Just that my husband's cheating on me." My voice was light, as if talking about the weather, but my grip on the bag strap was so tight my knuckles turned white, betraying the pain inside. Noah froze, his brows slightly furrowed, something flashing in his eyes. Pity or a pretense of it? "You're incredible," he said. "He doesn't deserve you. Don't waste your time on someone like that." I laughed, the sound dry, too loud in the quiet room. "Incredible, huh?" I looked straight at him, the wine making me reckless. My hand suddenly reached out, lightly gripping his chin, my cold fingers brushing his skin. "If I'm so incredible, would you want to be with me?" I expected a slap, or at least a look of contempt. But Noah didn't pull away. His face flushed, from his cheekbones down to his neck. He looked at me, serious, then nodded. "If you leave him, we'll be together." His words were like a stone dropped into the still lake inside me. I pulled my hand back as if burned, my heart pounding. Who was he to say that? A doctor, the youngest department head in the hospital, with a bright future, no shortage of women around him. Then why? I remembered the first time I met Noah, a few months ago, in the chaos of David's company team-building trip. I had tripped on a slope, my head hitting the ground, bleeding. He had been the attending doctor, his gaze lingering on me as if we'd met before. He had cared for me attentively, from the stitches to the follow-up reminders, going far beyond what a doctor was obliged to do. I had thought it was just professionalism. But now, after what he said, I wasn't so sure. Love at first sight? I didn't believe it. So, what did he want from me? I left the clinic, my mind tangled, my bag heavy on my shoulder. The hospital corridor was cold, the smell of disinfectant stronger. Then I heard his voice. David. He was supposed to be at the company, but his voice came from around the corner, clear and sharp as a blade. "When will you divorce her?" A woman's voice, choked, trembling with emotion. "Do you want our child to be born without a father's name?" I froze, my feet nailed to the floor. "Calm down. Divorce takes time," David replied, his tone patient, as if soothing a child. I'll take care of the paperwork for the baby. You and the baby won't lose out. You know I just want to be with you, right? I stood behind the wall, my hand pressing against the cold paint. I canceled my meeting today to take you to your prenatal checkup, he continued. What else are you worried about? Prenatal checkup. The word cut straight into my chest, sharper than the glass shard from last night. The family of 3 he had mentioned last night. So this was it. She kissed him, the faint sound echoing. Don't make me wait long, she said, her voice sickly sweet. Then she laughed, as if telling a joke. Wouldn't it have been better if she had died when she fell last time? David sighed, his voice low. Who hasn't thought that? My heart froze, as if my blood had stopped flowing. I leaned back against the wall, tilting my head up, swallowing my tears. 5 years together, the promises on the streets lined with roses, the bouquet I clutched when he knelt to propose, all of it now a joke. David, the man I loved, the one I married despite my family's objections, the man who went from nothing to CEO thanks to my family's money and connections. Who did he think he was? A self-made billionaire? He didn't realize that those connections that had lifted him up could just as easily throw him into the abyss. I wiped my tears, my jaw tight. Fine. If he wanted her, I'd give her to him. But I wanted to see, when there was no company, no reputation, no penthouse, no credit cards, how they would love each other then. I didn't rush to expose David, but pretended I knew nothing, continuing to keep up the appearance of a harmonious marriage with him. I sat at the dining table, a cup of cold coffee in my hand, watching David adjust his tie in the mirror. He kissed my forehead gently, as if he were still the perfect husband. I'll be busy all day today, he said evenly. Don't wait for dinner. I nodded, smiling, lips pressed tight to hide the bitterness in my mouth. I used to believe that the rushed mornings and the late nights were for our future. Now I knew they were just excuses. He wasn't at the office. He was with her. The door slammed shut. The sound of David's car faded away. I set my coffee cup down, opened my laptop. The divorce plan document lit up on the screen. Contact lawyer, check joint accounts. I was weaving a chess game, each move slow and precise. In a few months, David would receive my gift, a surprise he would never forget. But Noah appeared, like a misplaced chess piece. Since that follow-up appointment at the hospital, he had been texting me regularly, polite yet persistent. When he learned I often skipped breakfast, he started ordering food, salad boxes, sandwiches, orange juice, delivered to my door. I refused, but he didn't stop. Every morning, as soon as David left, Noah would be standing at the gate, a bag of food in hand, his gentle smile making it seem like the most natural thing in the world. You need to eat breakfast, he'd say, not giving me a chance to argue. I'd shrug and take it, but inside I stayed cautious. Men, I had learned, never give without wanting something in return. That day, the air was crisp, and Noah handed me the bag as usual. He wore a white shirt, collar slightly open, hair falling over his forehead. I looked at him, and as he was about to leave, I suddenly wrapped my arms around him from behind. His body went rigid, the tips of his ears flushing red in the morning light. I felt the warmth of him through the thin shirt, my fingers brushing lightly over his stomach, firm, as if he had just left the gym. Not bad, I said, my tone teasing, deliberately cruel. Good enough for play? I'll pay $2,000 a time. Is that enough? I wanted him to be angry, to walk away, to rebuild the wall between us. I was afraid that if I let him get closer, I wouldn't be able to stop myself from falling deeper into this. But Noah didn't get angry. He pried my hands off, turned around, a flicker of hurt in his eyes before it softened. "Maybe," he said, his voice trembling, "but only me." His face flushed, fingers curling tightly, as if he had just wagered all of his pride. I froze, my mocking smile stiffening. The man who was always so refined, so composed, now stood before me, fumbling like a schoolboy confessing for the first time. I rose on my toes and suddenly kissed him, my lips pressing against his, rough, as if to see whether he would pull away or stay. Noah went still, eyes closing, long lashes trembling. His breath was hot, his hands instinctively tightening around my waist, pulling me closer. The air thickened, heavy with something unspoken, until the sound of a key turning in the lock cut through. David. He was home early. I shoved Noah into the bedroom, so hard he nearly stumbled. "Why are you back?" I stepped out, my voice cheerful, masking the racing of my heart. David held a briefcase, his eyes sweeping over me, suspicious. "Forgot a contract," he said, then frowned. "Why is your face red? Are you sick?" He stepped toward the bedroom door, pushing it open. I held my breath, my heart pounding like it might break through my chest. The room was empty. The bed perfectly made, not a trace left behind. David exhaled, turning back, his voice gentle. "Open the windows during the day. If you feel unwell, call me right away." I nodded, walking him to the door, my hand tightening around the doorknob. When the sound of his car faded, I coughed softly. Noah, 6 feet tall, crawled out from under the bed, his shirt wrinkled, hair dusty. He brushed himself off, his face pale, not meeting my eyes. I laughed, the sound echoing through the quiet house. "What's this, doctor? First time hiding under a bed?" Noah glanced at me, irritation flashing, but his voice stayed gentle. "We've gotten this far," he said, his tone low. "When are you going to divorce him?" I tilted my head, leaned into his ear, and blew softly. "This far? Doesn't this make it more exciting?" Noah's face flushed crimson, and he stammered, I have to get to work." He practically ran out the door, his tall frame disappearing beyond the gate. I stood there, watching his back until it was gone, and couldn't help but laugh. Youth really is a wonderful thing. As my running shoes pounded steadily against the sidewalk, my breathing fell in rhythm with the early morning wind. A figure stepped into my path, her stomach rounded beneath a tight top. Ashley. She grabbed my hand, tears streaming down her cheeks, her voice trembling. "Olivia, please, let David and me be together." Her eyes lifted to mine, shimmering, as if waiting for me to scream or yank my hand away. I stood still, looking at her without even a flicker of a frown, strangely calm. Runners passing by glanced over curiously, a few lingering looks of interest. Ashley bit her lip, straightened, her hand resting lightly on her stomach as if it were her shield. "Olivia, I'm Ashley, David's employee. You remember me, right? I'm carrying his child." She hesitated, watching me. "If we don't get married, my baby—" I folded my arms, my gaze cold as stone. "If you want to beg, go beg David. If he wants a divorce, I'll sign immediately. Let me guess. You've cried? You've gone hysterical countless times. But he still hasn't left me, right? That's why you dragged your pregnant belly here?" Every word I spoke cut through her fragile facade like a blade. Ashley's face flushed crimson, her eyes flashing with panic. She was young, easy to expose. She took a deep breath, dropping the pleading act, her voice turning bitter. "Do you really think David still loves you? He's been sick of you for a long time. The only reason he hasn't divorced you is pity." She smirked, her smile triumphant. "He said, just seeing you makes him want to vomit." She stepped closer, whispering, "Oh, And do you know why you fell last time? It wasn't carelessness. It was me. Accidentally making you trip. And David? He knew, but didn't care. He even joked that if you hadn't woken up, it would have been better. Her words flared like fire in my chest. I knew they were cruel. But to lay hands on me? My chest heaved, blood rushing to my head. I raised my hand and slapped her hard. The crack rang out, her head snapping to the side, her cheek flushing red. Before she could react, I swung again, making it symmetrical. She staggered back, clutching her face, screaming, "Help!" Before she could draw more attention, I grabbed her arm and yanked her into the shadows behind a row of trees. I leaned in close to her ear, my voice ice cold. "Is this baby really David's?" Ashley froze, the color draining from her face, her pupils widening in panic. "What are you talking about? If it's not his, then whose?" Her voice shook, but the way her eyes darted away betrayed her. I smirked, patting her shoulder lightly, feeling her body tremble. "Don't be afraid. I'll keep your secret. Take care of the pregnancy, and I'll help you become David's wife. That man, I don't want him anymore." I waved my hand and turned away, my steps light, as if I had just set down a heavy burden. Behind me, Ashley stood frozen, her face pale, drained of all color. Just as I expected, that night David didn't come home. The phone rang, his tired, perfunctory voice on the line. "I have to go on a business trip, meeting an important client. Tomorrow's the weekend, but they requested urgently." I sat on the sofa, a cup of hot tea in my hand, the warmth seeping into my fingers, though my heart felt frozen. Meeting a client on a day off? Who's that hardworking? I knew full well he was with Ashley, but I didn't expose him. "Stay safe, love," I replied softly, like a dutiful wife. He thanked me, then hung up. I set the cup down, curling my lips into a cold smile. "Enjoy it while you can, David. Your time is running out." The next morning, Noah appeared at the gate, a breakfast bag in hand, his smile warm as the morning sun. "No plans today?" he asked, eyes bright. I shrugged and invited him in. By noon, he was in the kitchen, sleeves rolled up on his white shirt, a dusting of flour on the tip of his nose as he kneaded dough for bread. The smell of flour filled the air, comforting, making me smile without thinking. Then the phone rang, the nurse's voice urgent. "Severe traffic accident. The on-duty doctor can't handle it. You need to come now." The smile vanished from Noah's face, his skin paling as he wiped the flour from his hands. "I'll drive you," I said, grabbing the keys, my heart pounding with worry. The surgery lasted 12 hours. I sat in the cold, hard chair outside the hospital corridor, the sound of machines echoing around me. Finally, the OR doors swung open. The patient's family broke into sobs, rushing to surround Noah, shaking his hand, thanking him over and over. He looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes, his scrubs soaked with sweat, but he still smiled, speaking gently. "Don't worry, the surgery was a success." They sighed in relief, their voices trembling with gratitude. Noah rubbed his forehead and trudged toward the break room, his shoulders heavy. Then he saw me, sitting on the bench. Our eyes met, just a few meters apart, but it felt like a current passed through. He froze, then smiled, genuinely, and spoke softly. "I'm so tired." He walked quickly over, resting his head on my shoulder, his breath steady and warm. I tilted my head to look at him, his peaceful face, long lashes trembling slightly. "Angel in white." Those words no longer felt abstract. The hallway was quiet, and I could hear my own heartbeat racing faster than ever. On Sunday night, David finally dragged himself home, looking worn out, his eyes bloodshot. He collapsed onto the couch, sighing. Work's been crazy. I knew it wasn't work. It was Ashley. After my slap, she must have taken it out on him, arguing, crying. I understood exactly why Ashley had come to me. Insecurity. David had been spending less time with her, hesitating to divorce me. She thought pressuring me would force his hand. But it wasn't about me. His company was spiraling. Fewer orders, deficit reports, constant stress. He wouldn't divorce me because I still had value. My family, my connections, my resources. Ashley was naive, thinking men were simple. At first, he was obsessed with her, lust clouding his judgment, even wishing I'd die so they could be together. But once the thrill faded, he weighed the gains and losses. Give up the company and years of benefits for a mistress? Never. That's why he would never truly divorce me. He wanted to keep leaning on my family for opportunities and resources while also enjoying Ashley's admiration and excitement. But in this world, you don't get to have it all. Too much greed, and you lose everything. Under my father's arrangement, the orders started to vanish. David grew more attentive to me, probing carefully. "The company's in trouble. Could you talk to your dad for me?" I knew the time was ripe. I told him about a big project. My father's corporation was expanding internationally, needed urgent imports, high profit margins. "We're family. Why don't you try to find a supplier?" David's joy was uncontainable. He hugged me and spun me around 3 times, his eyes shining. "I can do it." He dove into it, comparing suppliers, choosing one with abundant stock and fast delivery. He paid a 30% deposit and rushed to sign the contract. That evening, he cooked dinner by candlelight, the red wine gleaming. "Thank you, love." I smiled, raising my glass, my heart ice cold. The prey was in the trap. Now it was just a matter of reeling him in. A few days later, it was David's birthday. With Mr. Price's help, the company cameras had been connected to my phone for a long time. I brought a cake, pressing my finger to my lips. "Shh." The staff smiled and quietly followed me. I used my spare key to push open the office door. Everyone sang loudly, "Happy birthday?" But the singing stopped dead. David was. Slouched in the CEO's chair, Ashley kneeling in front of him, her belly unmistakably swollen. A disgusting sight. That big and still servicing him? I laughed coldly inside, but my eyes filled with tears, the cake dropping with a thud onto the floor. I stood still, my gaze full of grief, my tears glistening. People shifted uncomfortably, avoiding my eyes. David snapped out of it, shoving Ashley aside and rushing over. "Olivia, listen to me. It's not what you think." I shook off his hand, my voice choked. "Not what I think. She's pregnant." David spun around, immediately yanking his arm free from Ashley's grasp, shoving her so she fell hard to the floor, but he didn't help her up. "That baby isn't mine, is it?" Ashley clutched her stomach, eyes wide with disbelief, then gritted her teeth, standing and shoving him. "Bastard! You'll get what's coming to you." She cried and ran out, whispers following her. After that, I filed for divorce. David refused, but I handed the evidence to my lawyer and took it to court. I never saw him again, leaving everything to the lawyers. He lost his mind, blocking me on a crowded street. "Olivia, I was wrong. Give me another chance." People stared, whispering as he gripped my hand, his voice trembling, his clothes dirty like a stray dog. I looked at him coldly. "Enough, David. You think there's still a chance? Go be a father. Ashley's about to give birth. You got her pregnant while cheating and you still dare to beg?" I turned, but he grabbed my wrist. "Don't go. I have to tell you something." He stammered, his face flushing. "The factory's pressing for payment. That project—" I covered my mouth, feigning remorse. "Oh, I almost forgot. The project's been put on hold. His face drained of color, panic in his eyes. On hold? I put all the company's money into that. I have to pay triple in penalties. He clutched at me, pleading. Help me one last time. You can hit me, curse me, anything. I shrugged. That's business, nothing certain. You're the big CEO. Handle it yourself. Or maybe discuss it with your mistress. I shook off his hand and walked away, my heart light. Not long after, the court granted the divorce. With the solid prenuptial agreement my father had insisted I sign, most of the assets remained mine. The money he had left wasn't enough to cover the factory's debts, and what he didn't know was that the real creditor was me. After the divorce, David still wouldn't leave me alone. When Noah and I walked in, carrying shopping bags from the mall, the scent of new perfume still clinging to my shirt, the crunch of footsteps on the driveway made me stop short. David. He stood there, his face gaunt, eyes flashing first with surprise, then with fury. His hand trembled as he pointed at Noah, his voice hissing through clenched teeth. You... him? I looked at him, saying nothing. I didn't bother reminding him we were no longer married, or that he was the one who betrayed me first, that he and Ashley had laughed over my pain. Instead, I tilted my head, lifted Noah's chin, my fingers brushing lightly over his skin, my gaze cutting cold toward David. But what can I do? With him, I'm moved, obsessed, never bored. But looking at you... I paused, curling my lips into a mocking smile. All I feel is disgust. The words he once said to Ashley now returned to him intact, each one slicing through the air like a blade. David's face flushed crimson, his eyes sparking with hatred, but I could see clearly. He was powerless. I looped my arm through Noah's and pulled him inside, locking the door. The pounding started immediately, David's voice shouting outside, but I only let out a cold laugh. This house was mine now, by court order. He no longer had the right to set foot inside. Noah set the bags down, his gaze lingering on me, his voice low. Moved. He stepped closer. Obsessed. I backed up until my spine pressed against the shoe cabinet, no way out. He leaned down, his breath brushing my ear, his tone teasing, like a current running down my spine. Never bored. Then when will you agree to be Mrs. Williams? His voice was gentle, coaxing, but his eyes were sharp, layered with meaning. I raised a hand to his chest, keeping some distance, forcing myself to stay clear-headed. No rush. Noah was usually calm, always restrained, but this time he caught my hand, lifting it above my head, pinning me against the door. His breath was hot, his lips parting slightly. But I don't want to wait anymore. My heart pounded wildly, a flicker of panic slipping in. He looked at me, his eyes trembling slightly, his voice rough, laced with desire. Olivia, I don't want to wait anymore. I didn't have time to answer before David's voice roared again outside the door. What are you two doing in there? Open up! Noah frowned, disgusted, but quickly turned back to me, his gaze soft. Ignore him. Be good. Take my glasses off. As if under a spell, I reached up, slowly removing them. The familiar face suddenly looked different, sharper, more defined. The obedient puppy was gone, replaced by a wild wolf, eyes gleaming with danger. The contrast left me frozen, my breath caught. The pounding continued, but Noah leaned in, his lips brushing mine, soft at first, then deeper. Our breaths mingled, hot, trailing to my ear. I let out a soft moan, unable to hold it back. The banging stopped. Maybe David heard. Maybe he left. But I didn't care. Noah was too good, and for the first time, I didn't want to stop. One clear day, with clouds drifting lazily across the sky, I curled up on the sofa, sunlight slipping through the curtains, scattering warm streaks across the wooden floor. My phone slid lightly in my hand, and I accidentally opened a video. On the side of the road, a man was pulling a woman and a child out of a car, voices raised in sharp argument. I squinted and recognized them immediately. David, my ex-husband, his face gaunt, his shirt wrinkled. Beside him was Ashley, her belly now gone after giving birth, the baby in her arms wailing loudly. They were shouting at each other, pointing fingers, eyes filled with resentment. I closed the video, set the phone down, and felt not the slightest ripple inside me. Freedom, it turned out, was this light. I once wanted them to live in poverty, dragging themselves through hardship, where a man who once stood at the top like David and a girl blinded by vanity like Ashley would feel the cruelest punishment. A life without money or status would rip away the mask of love they wore. But who would have thought David would discover so soon that the child wasn't his? I curled my lips in a faint smile and shook my head. What a pity. Not for them, but for the things I once thought mattered. I stood up, my bare feet touching the cool wooden floor, and walked into the kitchen. Noah was there, in a plain white t-shirt, an apron tied at his waist, carefully chopping vegetables, the fragrance of fresh herbs filling the air. He looked up and smiled, a tiny speck of olive oil on the tip of his nose. I wrapped my arms around him from behind, resting my chin on his shoulder, my voice soft. Why are you this good to me? Have we met before? He froze, the knife stopping mid-air. Wiping his hands on the apron, he turned, gently lifting my chin. His eyes were warm, like morning sunlight streaming through a window. Yes, we have. I stared at him, stunned, pulling my hand back. He smiled and began speaking slowly. When my parents died, I was desperate. A kind little girl quietly helped me, never leaving her name. Olivia. I must have used up all my luck to meet you again. He leaned closer, his eyes lighting up. Do you know how long I've waited for this moment? I stood there, dazed, as memories rushed back like a wave. I was 9, during a school charity day in our small town. A boy stood outside the classroom window, his clothes dirty, his eyes bright. Why don't you come inside and study? I asked. He looked down. I don't have money for books. I frowned in surprise. Your parents won't buy them? He shook his head, his voice small. They're gone. But I want to study, to be a doctor, to save people. I grinned. My family can help. I'll ask my dad. I ran off, not looking back. I looked at Noah now, stammering. You're that boy? He nodded, the sunlight catching his face, lighting up his gentle smile. I am. The kitchen suddenly felt brighter, as if every dark corner in my heart had been washed away. I leaned into him, feeling his warmth through his shirt, my heartbeat steady. The kitchen smelled of herbs, bathed in soft light, everything perfect as if destiny had planned it. David and Ashley were now nothing more than a blurry video clip, a fragment of a past I no longer cared about. I had found freedom, not in victory, but in moments of peace like this. The smell of toasted bread, the sound of Noah's breathing, sunlight scattered across the floor. Life, it turned out, wasn't about revenge, but about learning to let go. So, your heart could be as light as the clouds in the sky. Freedom is not breaking free from chains, but finding where your heart belongs.
And that wraps up today's story. Now we want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments, and let's see how far these stories reach. If this story moved you or gave you chills, give it a like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories. One last thing, rate the story from 1 to 10 in the comments. Your feedback helps us bring you even better ones next time. Thanks for watching. We appreciate you being part of this storytelling journey.